or fifth member of the Spectator Club is Will Honeycomb. Richard Steele writes about him, but that our society may not appear a set of humorists unacquainted with the gallantries and pleasures of the age, we have amongst us the gallant Will Honeycomb, a gentleman who, according to his years, should be in the decline of his life, but having ever been very careful of his person and always had a very easy fortune, time has made but a very little impression either by wrinkles on his forehead or traces on his brain. So the next member is Will Honeycomb. Steele says that our society or club is not a group of humorists only who are unacquainted with braveries or pleasures of life. We have among us a brave person, Will Honeycomb. He is a gentleman who is, according to his age, is an old person. He is in the decline of his life, means he is old person. But because he is very careful about his personality and he is having a very good fortune during all his life, that's why time has made but a very little impression on him. So there are not showing his old age. He's not showing his old age. There are no wrinkles on his forehead and his brain is also working very well. He is an old person, but because he is very careful about his personality and he is also a fortunate person, he has not seen very much difficulties in his life. That's why he is not looking very old. His person is well turned and of a good height. He is having a good height. His personality is very good. He is very ready at that sort of discourse with which men usually entertain women. This person is more interested in women. He has all his life dressed very well and remembers habits as others do men, as other person remember. But other person they remember men, women, but this person remember habits. He can smile when one speaks to him and laughs easily. He knows the history of every mode and can inform you from which of the French king's benches or wives and daughters had this manner of curling their hair and that way of placing their hoods, whose frailty was covered by such a sort of a petticoat, and whose vanity to show her foot made that part of the dress show short in such a year. So he is talking about the fashion of women. He knows the history of fashion and his talk is basically related to the world of women. He knows the history of every fashion and he can tell us that the manner in which our daughters and wives are curling their hair, they have taken from which French king's ventures, which French king's mistress. They have learnt all those things. In a word, if we talk about Will Honeycomb in a word, that is that all his conversation and knowledge have been in the female world. He is basically interested in the female world. All his knowledge, all his talk is associated with females. As other men of his age will take notice to you what such a minister said upon such and such an occasion. He will tell you when the Duke of Monmouth danced at court, such a woman was then smitten, another was taken with him at the head of his troop in the park. Other person of his age, because he is an old person, and other persons of his age will talk about the sayings or talks of ministers and what the minister said upon such an occasion. But this person, Will Honeycomb, will talk about the history of Duke of Monmouth when he danced at the court, which woman was then smitten and which woman was taken with him to the park. He will talk about the world of women. In all these important relations, He has never, about the same time, received a kind glance or a blow of a fan for some celebrated beauty. Mother of the present Lord, such a one. And in all these important relations, he always received a kind glance. He gets fan, and one of his fans is a celebrated beauty who is the mother of present Lord. If you speak of a young commoner that said a lively thing in the house, he starts up. He has good blood in his veins. Tom Mirabel begot him. The rogue cheated me in that affair. That young fellow's mother used me more like a dog than any woman I ever made advances to. This way of talking of his very much enlivens a conversation among us of a more sedate turn, because other persons of the club are of serious nature. But the way of talking of Will Honeycomb enlivens a conversation when he makes jokes among them. And I find there is not one of the company but myself who rarely speak at all, but speaks of him as of that sort of a man who is usually called a well bred fine gentleman. The writer says that he is of the opinion that this man is be called as a well bred fine gentleman. To conclude, his character still says, where women are not concerned, he is an honest, worthy man. If we are not talking about his interest in women, we can say that he is an honest and worthy man. So the author has talked about Will Honeycomb here. Though he is an old person, there is no traces of the passage of time in his brain and in his personality. He has an attractive personality and can impress women by his talk. He dresses well and is well acquainted with the history of every fashion that remained in vogue in England. Will Honeycomb is always interested in matters pertaining to women. In his conventions, he talked mostly of women, their dresses, their manners, their fashions. He has a good knowledge of history, but he can tell that the hairstyle or heads of our wives and daughters resemble to those of benches of French kings. But according to author Richard Steele, he is a gentleman. Though he is talking about all these things, he is basically interested in the world of women. But according to writer, he is a fine gentleman living the relations of women. If we leave his talks about women, we can see that he is an honest and worthy person. There is the last member of the Spectator Club, and that is the clergyman. Steele says, I cannot tell whether I am to account him, whom I am next to speak of, as one of our company. The writer is in confusion whether he should count this person in the member of club or not. Why? For he visits us but seldom, because he is a visitor. He is not a permanent member. But when he comes, it adds to every man else a new enjoyment of himself. He is a clergyman, a very philosophic man, of general learning, great sanctity of life, and the most exact good breeding. He is a pious man. He has the misfortune to be of a very weak constitution, and consequently cannot accept of such cares and business as performance in his function would oblige him to. He is having a weak physique. He is therefore among divines what a chamber councillor is among lawyers. The probity of his mind and the integrity of his life create him followers. He is having many followers just because of his intelligence, just because of his good behavior, good nature, because of his integrity, as being eloquent or loud advances others. He seldom introduces the subject he speaks upon. He is a orator, we can say he is a very good speaker, and whenever he speaks on a topic, he never introduces his topic of his subject, But we are so far gone in years that he observes what he is among us, when he is among us, and earnestness to have him fall on some divine topic. But whenever he comes, whenever he speaks among these other persons of Spectator Club, he falls on some divine topic, which he always treats with much authority. As one who has no interest in this world, as one who is hastening to the object of all his wishes and conceives hope from his decays and infirmities, and these are my ordinary companions. So, at the end of the essay, the author tells us about one of his companions who seldom waited him. He is a philosopher and clergyman. He lives a sacred life. He is very weak in constitution because of ill health. He cannot fulfill the responsibilities which promotion in the church might have brought him. He speaks on divine topic with authority and he wishes for the good of the world even after his death. So here we have seen in this essay Richard Steele has introduced various characters, various members of the Spectator Club, and by presenting these members, he has talked about the members of different categories of society. Every type of character of the time is presented in this essay. Thank you.